Viviana Alvarez, welcome to Economist Impact Sustainability Week in London. We're celebrating our 9th year of Sustainability Week. Next year will be the 10th year, our decade anniversary. Can you tell me a little bit about how your journey in sustainability has changed over the last 10 years, what you've seen, and where you are now at cDots?
Well, thank you for having me. I now became a fan of The Economist because you guys are engaging in the right conversation. And the question is quite timely. I learned sustainability by doing. You know, my background is consumer goods. I was with Unilever for about 15 years, and my last two positions were head of strategy and head of sustainability for North America. But I had the privilege to see the overview of the entire organization in London when Paul Pullman was still our CEO, and I believe Unilever was one of those guinea pig companies in understanding what thinking medium long term could look like, to the point that Paul was collaborating since the beginning with the Sustainable Development Goals that we know unfortunately have not moved the needle. We're not even 20% of progress. But that was my school of thought. So how do I see sustainability? I don't see sustainability. I see value chains, I see transformation, I see a system complexity with many interdependencies, and I see a world that is designed for linear models when actually everything is exponential that is around us. So I don't think the future is sustainability, it's more the interdependencies of a system revolution.
And can you tell me a little bit about cDots and how you're impacting that system revolution from where you are now?
So after leaving Unilever and in the transition of what next, we were in New York, and my husband at that time, he left the UN, I left Unilever, and we thought, okay, now is the time to work in the middle of all of these exciting things. So we decided to go to Washington to collaborate on system thinking and another type of reimagining the future, because we thought that there is a lot happening in the short term, and that's exciting, but not to the point that is going to transform things. So cDots was born by accident. cDots means connecting the dots. And what started with me trying to figure out who was working on these big systemic things as a catalyzer in the middle of all those partnerships that we know we need to address these challenges, turns out I identify a ginormous gap, let's call it opportunity, on human capital of people. Because in this transition, like I'm sure everyone is, what do I need to unlearn, learn, and relearn, right? What took us here that is not going to take us there? What do I need to learn in a different way, from AI to the ESG regulation, to all of those things that you get easily overwhelmed? And then what makes sense, because a bit the definition of insanity is continue to do the same thing and expecting a different result. So cDots was born because in the process, the gap that there is on upskilling the human capital, top down and bottom up, is very, very big.
I'm glad that you brought this up. This is something that we've been looking into pretty specifically at Economist Impact. We've recently released in Davos this year a Green Skills report. We'll soon be releasing a Green Skills Index. And I think to your point, a lot of people, what we found is that a lot of respondents, a lot of the industry recognizes the role and the need of changing skills, upskilling people, education. Something like 80% support that need, but only 55% of companies are actually implementing those kind of policies to invest in their human capital in the necessary way for sustainability skills. What do you think are the impediments that are there to skilling people, education around the sustainability transformation, and what do we need to do to accelerate it?
I love that question because it helps me to bring a point that I'm trying to just repeat over and over. The root cause is that in our financial system, designed around the 1970s, people, human capital, is considered a liability, a cost, not an asset. So just by pure economics, and I'm not an economist, but just by, if we don't see us as an asset, there's not going to be a lot of love and investment, right, to begin with. Two, in this transition economy and all of these important conversations, what do we need technology? What is the money that we need? So we know the trillions approximately we need to put every year. We have a lot of the solutions, and those that we don't, we'll figure them out. But the people component, how do we upskill at scale? I mean, from an organization of 10 employees to, let's say, Walmart, right? You have 500,000 employees, direct, plus the ecosystem that depends on your value chain. So if you're Walmart, you can't send all the employees back to university. So now Walmart is a university. Mm-hmm. So what am I saying? That the workplace is becoming the learning place. Your workplace, your house, and it was accelerated, of course, after COVID and a lot of the facilities that we have right now. But what is happening is that if corporations are becoming universities, then what is the role of academia and others? Mm-hmm. And I think everyone has a role to play. And that's the beautiful thing, right? We all have a role to play. And even though we're seeing the pockets of action in different ways, I'll give you two examples that hopefully will crystallize the. One, Walmart just declared that they don't need college degrees for corporate roles, right? So if that is not a signal that you have a Kodak moment for academic institutions to see upskilling in a different way. The other one, in the US, you have 1 million jobs for cybersecurity that cannot be fulfilled in the short term. Who is helping to train the trainers for that? Is it the traditional universities? No, it's Google. Google is another university, right? So the roles and responsibilities are changing because the market is regulating to the needs. When you talk with CEOs or members of the C-suite, they are saying, I am overexposed and undereducated to the level of complexities in order to address not one, but 5 pressing issues that you have. So this is, in my view, this is not about sustainability. This is about everything, right? This is about an adaptation phase in where asset managers and asset producers need to, realize what do I need with my people and my product portfolio to be ready 3, 5, 10 years from now. And in that process, what skills do I need to unlearn, make space for new ones, and then develop through that. Mm-hmm.
Sounds great. Well, hopefully the Economist and Economist Impact can also be some kind of university around those skills.
Message and other things.
Great.
So yes, you're playing a key role.
Great. You talked about a little bit about sustainability leaders and sort of what's coming in the next step in terms of education. What do you see from a generational perspective to be the qualities of the next generation of sustainability leaders? How do you see young people in leadership positions embracing this role?
I hope we don't talk about sustainability anymore because everything should be around sustainability, right? So maybe if any future role, I think, needs to have a system thinking component, solution-driven approach. A lot of what we are seeing in MIT did a very interesting study, and they're saying, look, what we need the most is EQ, not so much IQ. Because now we type and we have a lot of answers to our questions, right? So it's more now the soft skills to bring people together, to drive a solution, new finance mechanisms. But for that, you need a different type of leadership that has new paradigms of solution-driven approach. And that may sound very evident, but it doesn't exist because the traditional business schools, they don't teach system thinking. It's engineer schools or public policy. The only university, as far as I know, that is doing systems thinking cross-functionally is West Point Academy.
Military.
Right? Yes, the military. I think that in the future, all of us will be thinking towards that direction because boardrooms are now gearing up to a different scenario of adaptation. So for that, you need system thinking, and I think that's going to be a critical skill for everyone. Yeah. Leaders, vertical, horizontal.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned systems thinking and also soft skills. Our research found very much the same thing, that these were really the critical skills that companies of the future will be looking for. How do you see recruiters and recruitment in the private sector adapting to these new needs and in their ability to suss out new potential candidates, and what are they looking for in new candidates?
So recruiters are one of the winners in all of this, right? Because when you see where the market is going in terms of fulfill those needs, that demand, you have recruiters. I'll give an example that is close to The Economist, because we did a panel with Russell Reynolds. Russell Reynolds, they, in order to fulfill that gap for their executives that are saying, I'm overexposed, I'm undereducated, but they need the solutions at scale, right? If you're multinational X and you need 100,000 of your managers and EVPs around the world to be trained, one university alone, Russell Reynolds alone cannot do it. But Russell Reynolds is engaging with University X with consultant Y. So you have MIT, Bain, deploying these at scale. So the executive recruiters play a critical role in identifying that demand and helping the leaders to adapt top down and also bottom up, because they're saying once you help me, then I need to do the same with my entire workforce. So I think they are in a very interesting position because they have the signals, but they're capitalizing on solutions and saying, well, you know what, why don't I help you with that?
Sounds like another university.
Right? There's another university. So we are seeing just demand everywhere. So what I'm seeing is new models. So I'm teasing some of the universities that I'm working with in saying, they're eating your pie. Everyone is eating your pie because the market is regulated. And I sit now in the advisory board of 2 startups that are disruptive in terms of education. One in K-12 and the other one upper education, management education. They're booming. Why? Because of the need. Because you have a lot of the traditional education system resisting to transformation. The incentives are not there. The academic system, if I thought corporate was complex, oh my goodness, wait until you learn about academia complexity, right? So when the system is not geared up for that natural disruption, it has to come from the outside. But I think this will naturally happen because if we are seeing already some of these elite universities losing MBAs because they're saying, why do I need to pay $250,000 or $500,000 if I'm graduating without understanding systems thinking, how to make, climate business cases, or even how to understand the basics of the science-based targets and information that we know professionals have to learn yesterday to apply today. So there will be this natural tension that we need for universities to adapt at scale. But in the meantime, because it's happening, the workplace is becoming a university.
Yeah. Well, let me ask one more question. You mentioned the time scale. They need to know it yesterday. Yeah. Before we came on, we were talking a little bit about these really rapidly accelerating time frames that companies need to adopt these kinds of skills and changes really in the next couple of years. That's a very short time for people to change, to learn, and to adapt. Do you see a risk there of human capital being a bottleneck for transition, or are you optimistic?
I'm the mother of 2 little girls, so I would always have to be a stubborn optimistic, that's for sure. But also I honestly think that because of this revolution, accelerated with AI, will be a determined factor to remember humanity and to maybe start the conversation of, hey, why don't we move human capital to become an asset? Yeah. Right? And overinvest in this, because if we know that the people becomes a critical path in this transition economy, then we need to start overinvesting there. The other thing is, it's almost like alchemy, because when things are melting, you can reshape them. Right. So I think this is also the moment where new paradigms of workforce development and the dignity of people and workers is vital. Actually, when you talk with oil and gas organizations, for example, one of their biggest concerns is people, human capital. So, which is an asset, not a lot of liability, I think. Yes. Great. Well, Viviana Alvarez, thanks so much for joining me here today at Sustainability Week, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your time.